Welcome back to the program after a bit. Dakota Wood from the Heritage Foundation, foreign policy analyst from the Heritage Foundation. Dakota, how are you today?
Yeah, there we go. Hey, we're going to make it work.
Yes, indeed. So let's talk about, of course, Israel and Hamas. That's why you're here. We've got 300,000 of these military types with Israel getting ready to go into Gaza. How bad do you think this is going to be for Hamas? Do you think that Israel will be able to root out and destroy Hamas for good with airstrikes and 300,000 reservists?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're talking almost 500,000. I mean, it's 100,000 active duty. They activated 300,000 reservists. Now, Gaza is a relatively small place. I mean, it's only like 7 miles by 20 miles, 140 square miles large. The Gaza City, obviously is in the part of that. It's one of the most heavily populated urban centers in the entire planet. It's like 2.5 million people that live in the city. So you can only put so many men and women on the ground. But what that 300,000 plus does is it gives you the ability to reinforce. If you take a casualty or hit, you put somebody else in their place. And it certainly outnumbers Hamas. I mean, with the carnage that we have seen reported over the last few days, and the statements by Netanyahu and other Israelis that they have to eliminate Hamas as any kind of a security threat, they will do this. I mean, they have committed to it, and they have no choice. If they hold back, it sends a signal to Hezbollah up north, and it sends a signal to Iran and anybody else that you can just massacre Israelis with little cost to that. So they've committed to do this. Now, what replaces Hamas? Does it come back in some other guise, under a different name or something like that? Probably so, but that's in the future. But the Israelis have to deal with the problem they have at hand now, and they will go in there and root out Hamas, root and branch.
So, I mean, we've spoken a lot about what happened over the weekend. We don't have to, go back and regurgitate all that. Everybody knows. But let me ask you this. Once Israel is able to root out and destroy Hamas, will this inspire other terrorist organizations like Hezbollah and so forth to attack Israel?
I think so. I think they're in for a very long, bloody period in their history. So, none of these other actors are going to say, oh, well, Hamas really took a hit. We forswear any kind of violence. I mean, there will be this vengeance, retribution sort of aspect to this. Hezbollah has been holding its fire. I mean, there have been some artillery exchanges. There was an anti-tank guided missile attack on an Israeli outpost. Again, up the northern part of Israel, Hezbollah operating out of southern Lebanon and even from Syria. So there will be attempts to exact revenge, for their Hamas brethren and those sorts of things. So this operation into Gaza against Hamas is certainly not the end. It may be the beginning of the end. And I even hate to say that. I mean, we're talking about a long-term viability of Israel as a state. So this is another punctuated episode in their history. They've been through 5 or 6 major wars. The first one at their founding in 1948. Yep. So it's got to a point where Israel has to respond to that, and it's just going to be bloody.
Well, I mean, everybody knows the story. We've been talking about this for a long time, but for Israel, they're in an impossible position because they're dealing with all of these other nations and entities that feel like they literally have no right to exist. Iran is out there, by the way. I think this was yesterday, actually coming out and saying that they had nothing to do with this, but Wall Street Journal and others reporting the Iranian Revolutionary Guard was actually there training them, helping to train Hamas in what was a very coordinated military type of attack by land, sea, and air. So this seemed to be beyond what Hamas typically does. It was it was very, from a battle standpoint, people are saying this was technically a very good, from a strategic standpoint, a very good way for them to go into Israel. I mean, it's a horrible, obviously, but the tactics that Hamas used, they took Israel by surprise.
Well, clearly effective. I mean, you got nearing, 1,200 Israeli dead. So if you're going to make a statement, extraordinarily effective at doing that. Now, it brought down this wrath upon them. So it depends on how they view success. If they've carried out the will of Allah, if they've made good on their promises, if they're all dying as martyrs, perhaps they do view this as a strategic success. It motivates their fellow terrorists and other organizations to also prosecute attacks. So victory is in the eye of the beholder, depending on what you value and what you think is important. As far as Iran goes, these are legalisms, right? That was the Ayatollah in Gaza City issuing the final order? No. Our U.S. intel services say that Iran wasn't directly involved in terms of on-scene, ground commanders and those sorts of things. But they're all dancing around the point. I mean, Hamas wouldn't be viable were it not for the financial and military support, meaning weapons and ammunition and training and those sorts of things, that has gotten from Iran over many, many years. I mean, Hamas has been around since the 80s. So Iran is the father of this. They've been the supporter and enabler, the encourager. They use these terrorist organizations as proxy forces to prosecute its own attack against Israel in various forms and all that. So absolutely, Iran is behind this thing, even if they didn't put their finger on a literal trigger when the attack commenced.
One of the things that a lot of folks are talking about this morning is the fact that there are people in Gaza. You were talking about how you got 2 million people, I believe, there in Gaza where all of this is going to take place. And one of the questions that people are asking is, okay, so you have Hamas, which I don't know how many Hamas members there are, but I mean, clearly there's not 2 million. So the question is, what is going to be the impact on those people that are not involved in Hamas and who, frankly, maybe even support Israel? If there are people in Gaza that do support Israel, what happens to those people? I know that America and Israel has said that they have a way out via Egypt. And so I think is that an option for them?
Yeah, it is. If you picked up a map mentally or on your computer screen or something and you look at this Gaza Strip, it's literally a strip of land along the Mediterranean, and its southern end connects to Egypt. So they could egress or cross through border checkpoints from Gaza into Egypt. Now, for Egypt, is that a problem for them? Do they have Hamas fighters coming in? Is this something what they want to be a part of? So, Egypt has to make the decision as to whether or not they allow people to escape that way. But in terms of civilian casualties, Hamas leaders have brought this upon themselves and their own people. They have placed command posts over many, many years and in planning cells and ammunition depots, under schools and in hospitals. In its initial response, Israel hit a couple of mosques because they were able to prove that or knew that command posts were inside these religious churches, the mosques for Muslims in that area. They just hit a university in Gaza City because that's where a command post was at. So Hamas has used their own civilians as human shields, betting that the Israelis would not attack because of the fear of this, the euphemism collateral damage, right? These innocents in the way, and then everybody would blame Israel for being so brutal when in fact it was Hamas that set up the situation that was no win anyway. But if you think of any period of warfare, America in World War II, going after the Germans, the Nazis, in Germany, you'd be bombing industrial cities, the firebombing of Dresden. When you think about the Japanese, to get the Japanese leadership and military forces, the Japanese had co-located military facilities next to civilian population centers. So, you firebomb Tokyo, drop a couple of atomic bombs to try to end the carnage of World War II. So in every period of war, there are these tragedies of civilians who want nothing, no part of the violence, but they get killed right alongside the fighters.
How realistic is it to hope for those American hostages and all of those hostages will be able to be rescued while at the same time you've got Israel taking out Hamas?
Well, I mean, you always hope. There are all these magical breakthroughs that you want it to happen, but you can't guarantee. The Israelis are very, very good at getting into tight spots and rescuing people. They've done that already. America has teams that are specifically trained and organized for hostage rescue in the diciest of situations. The problem with American teams going in is you're going into somebody else's war, so they're going to have to coordinate with the Israelis. You can't just go stumbling in there by yourself. If the hostage takers know that there is a team on their way, and these hostages can be held in some of the tunnel complexes that interlace underneath Gaza itself. It's how Hamas has executed attacks so successfully in the past, as they use tunnels into Israel and then come up and kill or kidnap somebody. So, finding out where these hostages are being held and then trying to get to them before the hostage takers decide to kill them on principle. If I'm going to die, I might as well take the hostage with me, right? There is no way to guarantee the outcome on this, but everybody knows the value of their own citizens. They try to rescue them and bring them out alive, but they'll make their best effort and just have to report out later whether it was successful or not.
So, Dakota, as we wrap this up, talk about what is coming across our southern border. Talk about sleeper cells. Talk about how the Biden administration, with their open border policies, in conjunction with, giving Iran billions of dollars and lifted sanctions and everything else.
Yep. How
in danger are we here in America?
Well, you've probably seen the leaked data from the CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, that came out listing thousands of individuals from countries of interest, meaning a country that does not have an information or data sharing agreement with the United States. So when somebody comes into our country, you can run a criminal background check on them, see if they're on a watch list or something like that. But there are countries out there that don't have that kind of an arrangement with us. And so what people from the Middle East and from parts of Asia, Pakistan and Afghanistan and others, they'll take flights from their countries into Latin America, Central America further south, and then come up north through that network, often run by Mexican drug cartels, into Mexico and across the U.S. border. And we're talking thousands that have been documented in the documented sense of being captured, and then they run a check and find out they have names on the terrorist watch list. In 2022 alone, I think there were 115 named individuals on a watch list. The year before that was 95 or something. And those combined are twice as great as any other set of previous years, going back 6 or 10 years.
Oh,
so almost nothing.
Dakota, these are, you've got Afghanistan, you've got Syria, you've got Uzbekistan, Jordan, Yemen.
All military age males, right? And so they're on terror watch lists. Or you don't have any background, but their country of origin is a country that we can't verify who and what they are. So this open border, in addition to the nearly 3 million people that have come into this country this year alone, 3 million people, you have probably 4,000 or 5,000 that are known to come from countries that we can't verify their background, and you have about 250 or so that are actually on terror watch lists. So it is a clear and present danger to the United States. They can be equipped and armed on their way up. They might have contacts and cells here in the United States. So, is there a recipe for another 9/11? Absolutely. Have we seen an attack, carried out? Well, no, it hasn't been in the news, but the potential is really there so long as this border remains open.
Dakota, Saturday, October 21st, you're going to be here in Nashville again, here in Middle Tennessee, speaking at the event for the Tennessee Eagle Forum. And I know you did this last year. And I got to tell you, I'm assuming your presentation is going to be on current events?
It is, yeah. It's unfolding. I was going to give a kind of a 10-year recounting, not in an academic sense, of the decline of U.S. military power, but in talking with Bobby Patre, who is organizing this thing, we'll take some headlines and we'll talk about the ability of America to protect its interests and how a war like what is occurring between Hamas and Israel really threatens U.S. interests, and whether we can do the things that we need to do in a very disordered world.
I cannot wait for that. Thank you very much, Dakota Wood. That is going to be, again, Saturday, October 21st, Eagles Wings 2023. It is the event put on by the Tennessee Eagle Forum Foundation. You can find out more information there, tneagleforumfoundation.org. And Dakota Wood will be there and a whole bunch of other folks as well. And looking forward to that. It is 6:22 on WTN.